a lot of you are probably wondering, who am I? Who's this guy that's talking? What's he gonna talk about? You know, things like that. Well, I'm gonna answer both of those questions. Starting off with, who am I? So as I was very well introduced, my name is Cerabona. It's me. You might know me as the hot dog guy. You might not know me as the hot dog guy. I'm an economics major, and I'm a sophomore. Thank you. Thank you. So when I was asked to do this talk, I spent a lot of time wondering, what could I possibly talk about? I mean, I'm a sophomore. I just declared my major last semester. What do I know really that I could talk about? And I thought, well, I'll talk about something I'm passionate about. And then I'll somehow combine it with my major, economics. And I thought, great, that would work fantastic. Be beautiful, nice square talk. So I'm decided to talk about something that is very close to my heart. I'm sure is close to everyone's heart in here, maybe not. I would like to talk about the inevitable collapse of the meme economy. So a lot of people don't know this, but there is actually a market for memes. It's not a monetary market per se. You don't really buy memes, but there's still producers and there's still consumers. So this will work for what I need to work for. So I've gone ahead and I've identified 3 main meme eras, just to keep things nice and simple. So the first era I titled the early era. Remember those guys? The next, we have the Vine era, very prolific era, talk about that a little bit. And finally, we have the postmodern era, which is the current era that we are residing in. So first, let's talk about the early era. So memes have actually been around for a while. A lot of them kind of started in the 90s with the start of the internet, but they didn't really get to mainstream popularity until much, much later. So I've just said that this is very, very general, pre-2000 to 2012, because that's approximately when this era happened. So this era was denoted by a few things. One is a very small market. There were not a lot of people that were producing memes, and there were not a lot of people that were consuming memes. So that means that there are also very high barriers to entry, because a lot of the original memes that came about in this era originated on message boards like 4chan as well as on Reddit, which you need to be part of the community and you need to really understand how to make these memes. So not a lot of people were doing this in the beginning, so which led to not much investment. So very, very small market in the beginning. Got a couple nice pictures here. So that was the first era. Towards the end, a lot more people started getting into memes, and that's when this is around the time when I recall seeing my first memes. I think 2013 was the first time I ever saw a meme, and here I am today. So it's great. So next era I'll talk about is the Vine era. Which is arguably the most prolific era in memes that we have had. So this spans from 2013 to 2017, when Vine was active, RIP. And it peaked around 2014 to 2015. That was when it really was at its height, and that's when the volume of memes were really their heaviest on this platform. So obviously it originated on Vine, as it's called, the Vine era. And like I said, it's much higher volume, so it's a much larger market. And the barriers to entry were dropped a little bit. And the reason for this is because a lot of people had phones. I mean, you might have, back then it might be like you might have iPods or iPads or something like that, and you could easily enough download an app and then make a short little 6-second Vine, post it. But one of the things is that you really needed a following, right? You needed to have a lot of followers for your meme to really get out there. So it was still a little bit difficult. But this era is sometimes referred to as the golden age because it allowed people to share memes in a way that was very fast and available, and it created it gave a lot of people a platform. You might know some of these people up here. You might have followed them on Vine back in the day. No one was trouble with that last guy, right? He's never had any problems or controversies or anything. So now so I said that there were 3 main eras, but that was just a little bit of a lie, because I want to focus on what I call a special case now. The Facebook era. I will warn everyone, you might need to brace yourselves for this one, but it'll all be over. It's all going to be over in a minute. We're just going to get to this because it's interesting. So as the market for memes is increasing pretty much exponentially, and people are really moving through memes a little bit faster now, the Facebook era has strangely remained very stable. It's a very stable market for memes. They haven't really moved past your simple picture with top text and bottom text. So it's a very stable format. I'm going to take a deep breath now as I put some pictures up. But they're not very good, right? I don't think most people will look at these and say that they're good memes. So when I'm talking about the collapse of the meme economy, one of my first thoughts was, well, where's everyone going to go? And I thought, oh, maybe they'll go to Facebook and repopulate that area with some good memes. But as you can see, Facebook is very toxic to millennials and the Zoomer generation, as they are sometimes called. So it's not really a place that people can go to post their memes. So now we move to the present era, the postmodern era. This era came about after the fall of Vine, and is categorized by a rapidly growing market, more so even than Vine. Barriers to entry are few to none. I mean, you could probably everyone in here could take their phones out and within a couple minutes probably throw together a meme. I know if you have Instagram, that works fine. And one of the things that kind of evolved in this market is what I call the friend-to-friend system, right? So memes went from being a very kind of big thing that a lot of people could relate to maybe you make a meme that relates to your friend group, to something funny that happened a couple days ago, or maybe something that's going on in college, right? Or I see some people shaking their heads over there. I think they're going to have some questions in the Q&A section. So the memes became very niche, right? Which actually, an interesting thing, at the same time that they're becoming niche, they also are kind of evolving culture, right? They now have serious implications, not only for comedy enjoyment, but also for health. In this case, and they're also incredibly usable memes. Here's another example of a classic culture evolving meme. There's another good one. There you go. Yeah. So now I want to talk about where this is going, right? Because how am I really going to make the claim that the meme economy is going to collapse? Well, I thought about this a lot, and the main problem that I see is something called inflation, right? The more of something that there is, the less valuable each individual thing becomes, right? You see this a lot with money. It happens, and it's happening with memes, because, I mean, you can already go on Instagram, right? And you go on your Discover page, and you might not even browse memes a lot, but it's full of memes about stuff. So I predict that eventually, that is going to take over almost, and that the platforms are going to become basically borderline unusable because of all the memes that are on there, because of the high volume, which will then lead to people just absolutely leaving those platforms, which will lead to people just throwing more memes out there, which will completely devalue the meme. Actually, I took the time to throw together a little graph here that I think it's a little rough, it's not perfect, but I think it's a pretty good representation of the problem that we're going to be seeing. So, here's the graph. So, I've identified a few portions of this graph. So here is kind of the early era, right, that first little burst up. And then you have another kind of peak with Vine. And then we're not quite at that tipping point land there, but we're getting there. But we are getting there, very slowly, but very surely we are getting there. So what happens when we get there? What are the implications of the collapse? Well, the implications of the collapse are as follows. The platforms will become unusable because of the incredible high volume of memes. Eventually, this will cause the collapse of social media. Because as soon as a platform opens up, it's going to be flooded immediately. And then it's be shut down, next one opens up, you see the problem. It's just a cycle that keeps repeating and repeating. This will lead to a period of social stagnation. Eventually, demands will be made that something will be done about the absurd flow of memes that is coming into the economy that led to this problem in the first place. And eventually, if it gets bad enough, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but eventually, what's going to happen is that there's going to be a revolution. I know, right? So that's a whole lot of scary information, right? So you're probably wondering, is there anything that we can do to stop this? Is there anything that can be done currently right now that can do to stop this? Well, we're all students here at Dickinson College, right? So what's something that Dickinson talks a lot about?
Sustainability. Investing fossil fuels.
Okay. What do they claim to support? Okay, the answer is sustainability. Okay, sustainability. The answer is sustainability. So just like we need sustainability with everything else, we need sustainability in this economy. So how do we put sustainable practices into the meme economy? Well, that can be answered with one word. Perfect. So what we need to do in order to prevent the collapse of this great meme economy that we've spent so many years building up is we need to have an occasional purge. Now, this has happened a couple times already, particularly on Instagram. I think it happened earlier this year. I know it happened last year, where a lot of accounts kind of just disappeared. They just went away, right? And what that did is that decreased the number of memes in the economy for a short period of time, right? So, in my economic opinion of 3 semesters, I think that we need a couple social media purges in order to save this meme.